Today on What's Next.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something new.
I never would have thought that this was my journey.
The reason we went German is because I'm proud of my heritage.
Hello and welcome to another edition of What's Next. This is the show that reminds you that there is always more. There's more to experience, there's more to learn, and there's more to share. And of course, it's usually a lot more fun when you can share it with others. Certainly more fun when our Growing Bolder gang is all together like we are today. Cecily Wilson, Bill Schaefer, and Amy Sweezy. And today we've got three great stories of passion. Passion for discovery, for place, and for experience. All different, yet all seeds sown at a young age that have blossomed into interesting and rewarding lives. Nadim Khan's passion for automobiles began when he was just a boy, and it became the spark of imagination and curiosity that has defined his entire life.
I grew up in Newcastle in England, and it was a grimy, northern, cold town, and there was no cool cars that you actually saw. And once in a while you'd see a big American car, and that would be something that just was mind-blowing for a child.
Nadim's love of cars didn't actually start with anything that he saw on the streets of Newcastle. His passion was supercharged by the ride of a superhero.
It's in my blood. Batman, ever since I saw them, the Batmobile was hugely influential. So that's where it started, really. It wasn't until much later on that I found out the history of the Batmobile, about what it really is. That it's actually was a show car built in '56 that was called the Lincoln Futura. Once its days were done on the show circuit, it was sold to George Barris for $1, and Batman came along. And George Barris in California was asked, can you build a car for the TV show? And he went ahead and, some would say, butchered it and destroyed it and turned it into the Batmobile.
His love of the Batmobile spurred Nadim to begin working on cars of his own. But the first vehicle that he took apart was a whole lot smaller than the Futura.
It was a toy. It was a tin toy that my dad bought for me. He put it on top of a table, would go to the edge of a table, and then it would back up. It would never fall off. And so I started actually looking at this thing and trying to figure out how it worked. And that's really where everything started. I wrecked a lot of stuff trying to figure out how it worked, and really kind of reverse engineering, or whatever you'd call it. And when I became a teenager, me and my friends, we would all just work on cars. Nothing exotic, Volkswagen Beetles, Minis, and things like that.
Nadim's entire life has been fueled by a passion for cars and car culture. Now 60 years old, he's still taking them apart and putting them back together. His taste is eclectic. He owns Cadillacs and El Camino, an old Plymouth hardtop, and of course a few hot rods. And while he doesn't know what's on the road ahead, he's keeping himself fine-tuned just like the cars in his garage.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something new. So I'm still an open book as far as gaining knowledge. I want to know more, and obviously as you get older, you're going to know more.
For Nadim, it's always been about cars, and I think to some extent cars have always been a passion for young people, especially boys. I want to find out from Cecily and Amy if they feel the same way. Cars represented freedom. I still covet the cars of my youth, but how about you guys, or was there something else that sparked your imagination? Cecily?
I do remember my very first car that I purchased in college, and it was a Nissan B210, and I called her Spanky. You could see the floorboard and the ground by the dash, by the stick shift. It was a hot mess, but it was my car, and I loved her.
For me, you know what it was? Is old movies. Even when I was young, like the Laurel and Hardy movies and the Our Gang movies and Marx Brothers, that's the kind of thing that I was into as well. So all kinds of things for all different people. Amy?
Yeah, Bill, I was actually going to go along down the movie trail as well, but I was going to say Christmas movies. As a kid, I loved all the Christmas movies when you'd get to that season of the year and you'd get to see Frosty the Snowman and stay up late past your bedtime. And I think the magic of it as well, that's something that I've carried with me into adulthood. And I think the other thing is I was going to say to you guys is, you know, whenever we encourage people to try to find their passion, go back to your childhood. If you're not sure what you want to do with the second act, if you don't know what your what's next is, what did you love as a child? Did you like to draw or paint? Did you like to play outside? You know, what were you passionate about then? And perhaps that's still kind of hidden somewhere within you, and that's what your passion will be now.
Come on, let me take you on a journey.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Can I ask you a question? Are you contagious? That's a pretty big word out there these days, isn't it? But you know what? It's not always bad. Instead of a virus, what if you spread a good attitude? Were contagious with kindness? Maybe inspiration? Hey, I met a guy in South Florida who's a lot like that, the kind of person that you just want to hang around and help to make a difference, because that's what he's trying to do. He spent a lifetime learning about his own culture, and what he's discovered is so interesting that he's helped create a museum to teach us about it and to celebrate it.
Welcome to the Island Space Caribbean Museum. Come with me, join me. I want to show you what it's like to be in our space. The people of the Caribbean have contributed so much to what exists in the world. And there's no place before this space that celebrates who we are. What you'll notice, which is really a part of what it is to be in the Caribbean, is to see color and to see culture and to see those things that are energetic and light and fun. Come on, let me take you on a journey.
David's journey began in Jamaica and then moved to America when he wanted to start a family. He was a musician, a photographer, social worker, teacher, searching everywhere for his purpose. His life's work began to take focus. He started a company to produce the show Taste of the Caribbean, which ran on PBS and Create TV, and he loved it. He followed it up with a companion cookbook, started a traveling exhibit exploring Caribbean culinary culture, and suddenly there was no end to what he wanted to do. And most important, he found a home in South Florida, a community eager to learn, to experience, and to celebrate. It was a community where David felt safe enough to be himself and proud enough to reach out to bring people together. He assumed it would be years, maybe a decade, before he could ever pull together plans and funding for a museum. But when the pandemic shut everything else down, that was his opportunity, again, to prove that one ordinary person can be the catalyst behind creating something extraordinary.
I'm excited by history in a way I've never been excited before, and I never would have thought that this was my journey. Why I think, the Caribbean culture is so important is that there are so many parts of it that are common, and then yet parts that are so completely different that it shows us what it is to be human. I mean, it's really about defining how we are in relation to everyone else. That's what culture is. And it's so important to feel that and to interact with that.
That is such a great definition, and good for David Muir. Listen, all of us should have reason to be proud of our heritage, and not because it's better, but because it's interesting. Our culture helps make us who we are, but knowing everybody else's culture, well, that makes us even better. We learn from each other. We experience new things. We discover life from a whole different perspective. So let's dig a little bit around our table here. What are you guys proud of when it comes to your heritage or culture that might surprise us, Cecily?
Well, I recently ordered a DNA kit. I don't really know a whole lot about my heritage, and that's what I'm interested in learning. And I think I might be surprised that I might be part Jamaican because I love color, I love festivity, I love fun. So I'm still learning about what that looks like.
I'm very proud of the military service in my family, going all the way back to the Civil War. My sister has traced the roots and of the grandparents and the great-grandparents and my dad, my sister, uncles, nephews. So many of my family members have served in the military, and I'm so proud of them. But I'm also really proud that that's part of my heritage and the things that I've learned from being a part of that.
You know, I think this is a tough one for me. I come from a family of hardworking, educated, middle-class Americans whose ancestors, like many of ours, are European. And, you know, like all of us, I'm proud of our culture of exploration and innovation and scientific and artistic pursuits. I'm proud of our culture of giving and welcoming. But I'm also bothered by the part of us that conquers and takes and excludes and exploits. You know, it's a mixed bag, and I think it's an opportunity for all of us now to help define our culture that we're going to be remembered for when someone asks this question on what's next 200 years from now.
We don't sell food here. We sell an experience.
Something we hear a lot of is, well, I'm not growing bolder because I'm not a marathon kind of a guy, or I don't have the money to travel to exotic places. And while we do stories on people like that, the vast majority of the stories we tell are not that. We even sat down to try to put into words the kind of people who are growing bolder, and we think we got it. In fact, we're so bold about it, we even wrote it all over the wall. Ordinary people living extraordinary lives. Think of it like this. Think of a tree. Humanity is the trunk, and all of us individuals are the branches. We start off together, ordinary people, but as we grow, some of us go this way, some of us go that way. We make choices. We choose to do something, or we choose not to do something. But it's in those choices where we have the opportunity to be extraordinary. They can be the simplest things, but they almost always involve finding something you love and diving right in. And then using your skill, your talent, your knowledge to inspire or to make a difference in the lives of others. So when you hear somebody talking about, well, this or that is someone who's growing bolder, just remember, it's not about possessions, money, privilege, or status. It's about living life to the fullest and being the best person you can be, because that's growing bolder.
Since 2001, Hollerbach's Willow Tree Cafe has been adding some Geist to the Central Florida city of Sanford. And for the translation, Geist means spirit in German. Husband and wife Theo and Linda Hollerbach opened the cafe with just 60 seats, and much to their surprise, they actually turned a profit their very first year. Now today, after several expansions, the restaurant can seat 650 patrons. It includes a rooftop beer garden. They've added a German market and deli next door, and they have a German folkwear store called Outfitters, which sells dirndls and lederhosen. It has become a true destination for residents and for tourists.
Good evening. We are at Hollerbach's Willow Tree Cafe.
The reason we went German is because I'm proud of my heritage. I have to admit that it's always been my leg up. You know, you take advantage of where you're from and who you are. I've always enjoyed cooking, and then when I came back out of the Army, I worked at a German restaurant, the Schnitzel House in downtown Orlando when Church Street Station just got started. Well, I saw the success of that venture, how well they did, and what they're capable of doing, and how they make people feel. And, you know, it resonated with me very much so. So I just said, well, you know, I will open my own someday.
Hospitality was in Theo's blood. In his German hometown, his family owned a butcher shop. One uncle was a baker, and another relative worked at the local hotel. And they all put him to work.
Literally, my uncles and my grandfather, they would bid for my services during the summer because we were a tourist town. And so I got to work sometimes in the hotel kitchen, sometimes in the bakery, sometimes in the butcher shop. So it's all restaurant. And we also did a lot of events in our town. We ran the sausage stand or the beer hall, and we'd have a disco contest, and we were surrounded by over 20,000 Americans with military bases, Bitburg, Spangdahlem. There was more Americans than there were Germans in my area. So they would come to our town to be entertained, and my family and our town, a lot of people, we all work together to provide these events.
We try to give the feeling of how Germany was in the 70s. That's when Theo lived there. That's when he came to this country. And it's sort of old-fashioned, the recipes. It's the equivalent of home cooking. You won't find a lot of German restaurants serving what we serve because people eat that at home. They do it at home. They don't go out to eat that. But that's what we try to bring to people, and they'll travel for it. We have people coming from 2-3 hours away to come here.
The events you talked about when you were a kid, was that kind of inspiration for you here?
Oh yeah, because that's the coolest thing is when you focus a group on one thing, right? Whether it's watching a show, a theater production, or a band, if they're focused on one thing, everybody gets to share that feeling, and it makes people feel really good if they can connect that way.
It's not just a place to come and eat. I used to tell servers, we don't sell food here. We sell an experience. And that's what we try to give, is an experience that people will remember and that we'll talk about.
What about you? Is there another culture that you enjoy learning about, or maybe enjoy the food or the music from? Bill, how about you?
I think, Amy, every time you get to learn about culture, it's a gift. We've had Hindu friends, and we've gone to temple with them on a number of occasions. Always just so fascinating, isn't it? And we have some Buddhist friends, and the thinking and the thought process just, kind of makes you deeper and richer all the time, even to those Sunday evening Italian dinners that we've gotten to share with friends. And our own family, a lot of the Jewish traditions, you combine those together, man, and that's where your humanity comes from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's the Indian culture is what I love. I love the spice, the curry, the beautiful saris that they wear. I just want to learn more and more about that particular culture. I recently witnessed a Indian wedding, and it was gorgeous. It went on for days, and I'm thinking, maybe we're doing it wrong.
First of all, lederhosen, no. Those potato pancakes or whatever those things were on the grill, yes, I'll have 2 orders of those. But to your question, Amy, I'm fascinated by it and know far too little about Asian cultures. I'm with you, Seth. India, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia, love the food, love the people, love the music, love everything about it, but I've never been to any of those places, but it's on my list. Welcome back. Are you part of the growing Boulder tribe on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter? I sure hope so. And if you are, we want your take, because each and every week our social media guru Jess posts questions like this recent one. In what groups or organizations have you found the most community? Barbara Jones said the Modern Widows Club, which was founded, by the way, by our good friend Carolyn Moore. My church and a card playing group was Dave Mayer's answer, and it's Harry Potter fandom for Tiffany Hall Wallace. So, gang, what about you guys? Where do you find your community, Bill?
Easy for me, 2 places. One is the adult hockey groups I've played with, youth hockey groups I've coached. Man, I love my hockey peeps. And the other one, my wife's a musician, and most of our friends kind of happen to be, and they are some of the most creative and cool people around. So that's where I feel most like me.
For me, it's kind of revolved more around work, fellow female broadcast meteorologists, also moms who do morning TV news, which is, things that I did for a lot of years. So when you find that group where you have something in common and that you can bond over that, I think that's really key and crucial to finding community.
Absolutely. And for me, it would be my Rotary Club. Love the sense of community that also brings in service above self. So being the president of our local Lake Buena Vista Rotary Club is really, really key for me. Also, my church. That is where I find my center. That's where my faith is nourished and continues to grow. And then finally, the mall. Those are my people. That's my tribe.
People still go to the mall? I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Beyond my work community, which I am incredibly grateful for, I'm pretty plugged into the master sports community. I admire so many people in so many different sports, and because of this job, I get to engage with them pretty often. I'm trying slowly but surely to get more engaged in the visual arts community. I've always admired painters and sculptors and filmmakers. So I guess the question for you folks out there is, what floats your boat? We value life by the way that we live it. So the question we all need to ask ourselves is, what do we care about? And then we have to pursue that. And always remember that your vibe attracts your tribe. If you want to be encouraged, be an encourager. If you want to be inspired, be an inspiration. And if you want to be loved, you have to love. As we age, it is purpose or perish. Literally, it's passion or perish. Now is the time not to retire from life. This is not the beginning of the end, folks. This is the beginning of what's next. And speaking of which, we'll see you right here next time.